Hello everyone. In this video, um, honestly, I'm just lost of words of what happened today when people in social media just been talking about Stan Lee died and passed away today. At first, my first impressions were like, this gotta be a joke. This gotta be early April Fool's Day or somebody trolling or pranking somebody because by the end of the day, it's like I've seen it happen before, maybe once or twice. Some people either make a fake meme or a fake post saying that Stan Lee died or passed away, and then they say, "Oh, we're trolling or we're joking about it." But sadly, no, this ain't no joke. How I know, how I slowly learned to know this is because some people that are like my social media homies, they have close to social media homies that they have admitted to me saying that um yeah, he died, man. This is serious, and my bad, but it's just the fact of when my homies just told me that he died and passed away, Stan Lee. It's just I can't really say that like I can't really say that basically I'm like a big fan of like personal stuff that he has done, like any personal work that he has done, put his own hands in it. But I will say this. I will say that I'm his biggest fan to the point where I could see him more as an iconic like person that put his hands and like passion into making Marvel of what it is today. Like common sense, you have basically writers and people who um, put their point of view and points across with different storylines, whether it be X-Men, Black Panther, um, Wolverine story, like along Wolverine stories, Hulk stories, Deadpool even, and the whole nine yards. Basically, there's various different types of Marvel stories and comics that you can say that there are different editors and different people who put their foot and hands in different things. But when it comes to like my bread and butter and like passion or my mind frame of me thinking of someone iconic in the like comic and nerd community and slash geek community, it has to be Stan Lee because by the end of the day, it's like no matter how deep, how no matter how big of a person he was morally into making projects, Stan Lee was the infrastructure of all of Marvel. We all gonna have to say that and admit that. We all have to say that and admit that. Truly, kind of like this one meme that I saw off of social media saying that Stan Lee's more than a cameo, and technically that is true. And if I had to piggyback off of that statement, it'll be just the fact of look, with him keep on making cameos off of most Marvel movies or all the Marvel movies, um, that should tell you something or give you a big homage of who was the real OG or the original person who helped jumpstart the company or this bit, the company or the whole like infrastructure of Marvel itself, and that's freaking Stan Lee. Um, he may be like an old person, pun intended or whatever, to an old person that made the comics and had like like basically was a producer and had his hands in his crafts. But by the end of the day, that's freaking Stan Lee. Like by the end of the day, that's freaking Stan Lee. That's like me talking about any type of anime that I love, whether One Piece or My Hero Academia, especially My Hero Academia. I'm going to get into that probably in a few minutes or later in this video. But My Hero Academia to any other any other anime like Future, like I'm trying to remember like Future Diary to One Punch Man, different stuff like that to Tokyo, even especially Tokyo Ghoul. We all gotta admit, anime lovers, um, from comic lovers that there's always got to be a beginning before you make it big. And why I bring up anime is because, yeah, you have anime with animation and it being, animated and whatnot, and just full of colors to like how it fluently plays out in like a animate in animation slash anime. But again, you have the what's the word? You have the infrastructure or the strong, solid, concrete foundation that made it what it was and what it is, and that is manga. Manga, if I had to make like a poetic or like a compare or contrast to Stan Lee in anime, it would be just Stan Lee and his comics are what he is what Stan Lee is to anime when it's started with manga. Like basically what I'm saying is manga infrastructure and foundation is manga because by end of the day, before you even create an anime or animate a series, it has to be in manga form most of the time before it becomes animated. Now, today's uh today's time and age, there are probably some animes that you could get away with, like Ruby, or like I'm trying to remember. Let's see, Ruby to possibly the newest version of JoJo Bizarre. Because if I gotta be honest now, JoJo Bizarre is just another example where it has like a big ass infrastructure where whether it's like you started from the 80s slash like early 80s slash 90s with this manga comics to its first animation on how it was to how it is now in the way later 2000s with how they put so much passion and sound effects to basically everything else that they put into it with the JoJo Bizarre like infrastructure. It's like that. That's what Stan Lee is in a sense when it comes to his comics. And the creation and the full infrastructure of Marvel. You had to become like creations had to be on pages first, and like just stories and whatnot and different concepts had to be created and jump started, or it has to be a little flicker of a spark before you even make a big flame or fire per se, um, in order for it to emerge into something bigger and colossal and whatnot. If I had to make a whole nother analogy, it'll be just, you know what, JoJo Bizarre is the best example for this. Basically, why I say JoJo Bizarre is the best example for this, even though over the years the Marvel industry it's full of twisted turds, especially when Disney bought the licensing for Marvel itself. It's just, look, Disney is just like a big example or a stepping stone, arguably, for the Marvel like business to become more expandable in different ways. Like not a lot of people like trusted Disney or saw that it was probably an iffy move because again it's Disney. It's all child friendly and just it's all child friendly and I wouldn't say childlike, but basically it's full of wonder and magic and whatnot here and there. Disney like wonder and magic and whatnot, and just full of different like happy vibes and whatnot. It's not more of a Marvel or a comic like thing to put in there. If I had to make a good example towards that, it's like when the new Cartoon Network of later 2000s rebooted, let the new rebooted Powerpuff Girls emerge, the 2016. It's like at first you think, okay, Disney bought this. Let's see what happens and see if they mess it up. Kind of like similar to how Cartoon Network messed up 2016 Powerpuff Girls. It was a bad idea because they're too it's too downgraded, too childlike, and too basically like they made like the Powerpuff Girls too like humanized of getting hurt and whatnot when you have literally no offense but test tube babies are basically like young superheroes that were created to be indestructible to be long story short a scientific version of Superman if I had to be bold enough to say it because yeah the girls had some weaknesses in the early 90s but it took more than just a few punches or you binding them or you doing certain things here and there to threaten their safety to screw over their power puffs versus 2016 it's like you can screw them over easily just like how you can screw over like an everyday normal average person. The only difference is just they're just an average person with superhumanoid scientific like powers and whatnot because literally y'all just no offense, but y'all literally just test tube babies. Y'all basically were like just born out of a test tube from basically this one thing called a chemical X. But aside from all that, yeah, that was our worries. But Disney, besides all that of the fears and doubts with Disney, it's just they did it right. They did it right. They kind of, give some respect to Marvel. They have a whole lot of action scenes and they're even funny with it. So, and on top of that, besides all that, it's just they also making big bucks of money. So, yeah, I applaud Disney for that and I applaud Marvel for, basically having some of their licensing, most of their licensing going towards Disney and whatnot in their studios because it helped them like expand more as a company. But aside from all that, let me get back to my analogy with the compare and contrast with JoJo, Bizarre, and like Marvel's like studios or just the business itself and the foundation. Marvel with Stan Lee making comics, it's the same thing as basically JoJo at first being made a manga. Let's get that straight. Stan Lee Foundation manga. And I mean, yeah, Stanley Foundation with Marvel Comics being comics, JoJo Bizarre manga, which is Japanese comics. Then you go back to Marvel again, circle around it. Oh, like later on, basically in my time in the early '90s, you have many different various of shows like X-Men Evolution to like, I'm trying to think whatever well sister. There most likely has been some Wolverine shows most likely because Marvel well, that's one of Marvel's most iconic characters. Yeah, yeah, X-Men Evolution, you have like the early 80s or 90s version of the X-Men and also you had like old version of Iron Man 80s to 90s to even the old version of the Hulk 80s and 90s. And you go back to JoJo Bizarre, again, that's very similar. It's like basically JoJo you had before you had like the later 2000s version of the anime itself, you had like the early 80s and 90s, whereas the animation looks pretty old and round to a degree, and it just looks more classical in a sense. It has that more classic vibe of animation, and it's not well crafted or it's not, per se crafted to the point where we have it later on today in the present time of later 2000s. And that's what going back again towards Stan Lee and him being the foundation of Marvel. That's what Marvel as a business did with Stan Lee's creations from comics going to animation of early 80s and 90s to now um, they've been making movies here and there from different studios like Fox and yeah, basically Fox Studios and different studios similar to Fox. But then they, elevated to Disney buying out some of their licensing, and they became a big hit. Going back again to JoJo Bizarre, with it being like present 2000, present 2000s, later 2000s, where it's like you have more sound effects, everything's a little bit more like grounded and more like completely improves crafting to a degree to the later 2000s to actually, giving more emphasis and more passion to what's going on with every different chapter, whether it be the basic chapters of part one with Phantom Blood with Jonathan Joestar to basically, like the I would like to call it the Fighting Crusade with part two with Joseph Joestar, and then there's part three, the big iconic part three, the Crusaders, Jotaro Kujo being, third part of JoJo Bizarre. And around that part, it's like, early, like later 2000s, it's more crafted and just bigger improvements compared to early 90s and 80s because technology is better. You have various ways to manipulate or utilize technology craft good good shows and good series better than where they were back then. But long story short, that's how I see Stan Lee. It is literally the big foundation and start of all of Marvel, and that's why inside it's like, whew, it got to me. Hell, even I can say, I can plainly, bluntly say as a black man, Stan, and and I don't give a damn who says what or corrects me, but I would like to say Stan Lee as like I guess like a celebrity in a sense. He's bigger than to me. He's bigger than like that. Compared to other like everyday black people here and there. Um, it's just well, no offense to everyday black people. I'm just being real. He's he's more heavier than what Biggie Smalls and Tupac had done for me in a sense. To me, that he's way heavier than that because by the end of the day, that's literally the foundation. He was literally foundation of my bread and butter, and I can even say comics and superheroes in a way are like how I even got started with was one of my starting points of being a big geek and nerd before even getting into anime and even knowing the full like understanding and concept of anime and what it was. If I had to say one more comment before I end this video, it would be just now today I got a whole lot of random like no as a proper geek I have a whole lot of different shirts and clothes that's like comic based. And the funny thing is most of nerd merch is going to be black. Most of the time it's going to be black. And that's how I find it funny, where it's like, yeah, it should be properly black because by the end of the day, prepare this eventuality of a day. Sad and tragic, but still poetic at the same time. A little dark as well too, but yeah, it's still it's still needed and it's poetic at the same time. But thanks for this video. Please leave a like and comment, and please subscribe if you like this video and my other videos. Thank you. Bye.